My next guest is a performance nutrition coach who works with the likes of Daniel Cormier, Conor McGregor. The list goes on. It is George Lockhart joining me here on the program for the very first time. George, how are you?
Doing great, boss. I'm very happy to be on here.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to you. And of course, you've been doing some great work, and we'll get right into some of the stuff you're doing right now lately in just a second. But I don't know if a lot of people know, George, that you were actually a fighter. You have an 11-7 record. You fought at welterweight and middleweight. Some of your notable fights, Shoney Carter, Bristol Morunde, Gerald Mearshart. How much do you feel that it's helped, working in this industry, especially with fighters, seeing as how you were a fighter yourself?
Man, I think it brings a lot of credibility. Obviously, we have a lot of knowledge, but when it comes down to it, there's a lot of psychology that's involved with the cut. If you've never cut weight before, sometimes you don't know when to shut up, and you don't know when to talk, when to motivate somebody, and it's like working with people. And being there so many times, I'm like, okay, this is where I just shut up and let them do their thing, because sometimes you need that space, and it's really helped. Like I said, the credibility. It's easy to tell somebody like, hey man, you need to do this, and they know, hey, you know what, he's done this himself. It'd be kind of hard for me to tell somebody to do some things that I'd never done before. So it definitely helps.
Yeah, and it certainly worked out well for you. When did you actually make that transition from fighter to performance nutritionist?
I was in the Marine Corps. I did a lot of the nutrition. That's kind of what my job was. I was a combat conditioning specialist out in Quantico. I was working at a place called the Martial Arts Center of Excellence. And I was still fighting, but, I was doing that, a lot of nutrition. Brian Stan, who, I was in the Marine Corps with, he went from the WC at 205 and to the UFC. And, I'm like, hey man, I think, it'd be behoove of you to go to 185, I always made fun of him, man. He's got the biggest head and the shortest arms in the world, so at a 205, it's kind of a disadvantage. So, he decided to do it, and then, he had an easy weight cut, but, I wasn't getting paid for that. I wasn't doing it just because we're really close friends. And then the second time I went out there, he's like, I want to introduce you to somebody. And, he introduced me to John Jones, and he's like, hey man, you mind helping him? I was like, sure. So it just kind of went from word of mouth. And then, I think when I was 31, basically, I'm like, man, I'm making a career out of this. I have my son. And I'm like, well, it pays the bills a lot more professionally, and I don't get punched in the face. So kind of made that transition around that time.
Did you ever imagine it was going to get this big? I mean, you're working with literally, the top fighters. I mean, and you make weight. That's the thing. Like a lot of these, there's so many other people who do the weight cutting thing as far as, performance nutritionists. And, you have fighters that miss weight. But, to my knowledge, I don't think any of your fighters have ever missed weight. And your client list is just crazy.
Yeah, we have, just the UFC alone, man, we have over 100 fighters. And, man, it's awesome, and there's a lot of things like I personally have actually had people miss weight. And it's like, we get this call, where, between me and you, like, we got Drew Dober, this kid, I mean, when we talk about being able to cut weight, this kid, he came in, he was 185 pounds on Tuesday, and he made 155 on Friday. And he said it was the easiest cut of his life. We can do a lot of amazing things, but at the end of the day, Drew, he's, we were able to work with him weeks before, and he had done everything necessary. There are those people that I have worked with where I'm like, man, I'm going to go out there and I know these guys aren't going to make weight. Like I just know it, but it's like, we get that last minute call, and it sucks because it's like, well, either they're going to do it with a professional overseeing everything, but like, look, man, this is, like maybe a miracle happens. Sometimes, we've pulled it out, but at other times, my job sometimes is to not only get you on weight, but to, make sure that everybody's doing this safe. And, I've had to tell coaches like, hey man, you got to pull the plug here. This isn't safe anymore. So it happens.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you mentioned, the roster there, just a number of fighters you're working with. And I know you've brought on other people to work with, Dan Leith, and then more recently, Tyler Minton. How did that come together with you even, meeting Dan and then also meeting Tyler and bringing them aboard on the part of the team?
So it's funny because Dan is actually my partner. The company's name is LockhartAndLeith,
okay,
and Dan's last name is Leith. But it's funny because we were in the Marine Corps together, and when we were in the Marine Corps, we did the same exact thing. He's the one that took over for me when I got out of the Marine Corps. So I was working with, I believe it was Cyborg at the time, And I got a call from Cormier, like, hey man, I'm like, man, I honestly I can't leave right now. So I called Dan, and he literally quit his job and flew out to San Jose. And it was funny because we were sitting there like, man, you know, we're very good at what we do, but you know, it's like one of those decisions that, you know, is a risk. And me and him have always wanted to work together doing this because we're real passionate about it. But yeah, man, quit his job and then flew out to San Jose, and basically ever since then we've been picking up clients from AK. He's picked up a huge amount of the roster, and you know, we were sitting there, and it's like, man, now even though it's me and him, right now he's working with Demi Lovato. I'm working with a civilian out in Fresno, and then we have Robbie Lawler up in Canada, so we had to send another guy. Well, we have a guy named Ian Larios. He's worked with a lot of fighters in like Glory. He's worked with the Time Bomb. I don't know if you know the Adam.
Oh yeah, Tiffany Van Sue. Yep.
Yeah, so he's been doing this for a while. He's a young buck, but man, like training him up, doing all the science. We got him out for Robbie Lawler while Tyler was still working with DC. So then we had Ian go out for DC when Tyler went to Khabib. So we're still looking for more people because our roster's grown so much. We got to train people up. It's not like we could just hire somebody that's a nutritionist because God honest truth, man, everything that we do is kind of against like what you're going to learn. Like if you go to a dietitian, you're like, hey, I got to lose 30 pounds in 3 days. What do I do? Dietitian's going to be like, you need to cut off a limb or you know, so we have to teach them the ways and but yeah, man, we're growing and it's been awesome.
Well, you and I were talking about this St. Louis card coming up, the next UFC card on January 13th. You have 7 fighters on that card. So how do you go about tackling something like that where, you know, you have this card where pretty much half the fighters you're working with? Yeah,
man, I'll tell you what, it's been a while since I've been out to like an actual fight week because I was with Conor, and as soon as I got done with Conor, I went back to a civilian. I got a contract with a civilian lady who, you know, basically wanted to lose weight for her 50th birthday. So I was out there for about 3 months. So I haven't been through the fight. So this is going to be my first fight back. We got 7 people, and it's exciting because it's basically 3 days of no sleep, man. You don't sleep at all. And, that's like not an exaggeration because they have to eat every 3 hours. You got 7 people. Some people go to bed at like 2 a.m. Some people get up at like 6 o'clock in the morning. So when one person's passed out, then you know you got to keep cooking for the next person. So it's an adrenaline rush, but it's super exciting. I mean, if we could take cameras in to show you like all the stuff that happens during the amount of, I guess, stress that goes on during a fight week, it would be an insane, you know, video. But you know, like I said, we're the best at what we do, and you know, everybody they'll make the weight and they'll feel great. But it's gonna be a crazy week.
The big one that happened, you know, this past weekend was Khabib Nurmagomedov, and you know, there's a lot of question marks with him making weight, just with the fact that he missed it against Tony Ferguson. How is it? You know, I know you didn't personally work with him; that was more Tyler. But you know, how was that process, and was there any concerns at all about him missing the weight?
No, you know, I think, you know, Khabib, he was a lot lower. You know, he had been very strict with his diet. He'd you know, went above and beyond, and you know, he made sure that when we went out there, when Tyler was out there, it was very easy for Tyler to do what he needed to do. You know, Tyler would talk to me, talk to Leith. We all, you know, we're a team, so we all just kind of back things up. You know, make sure that we're doing the right thing. But you know, Tyler did everything right. But the best thing is that Khabib did everything that Tyler said to do. You know, and it made the cut. I never want to say easy because, you know, all cuts suck, but it is relatively, in terms of cuts go, it was a good cut, and man, he looked like a freaking animal at that during the fight.
And we're a couple weeks out from Daniel Cormier's big title defense coming up here at UFC 220. How's he looking, and how is it getting to work with him all the time? Because I know he likes to eat, but he also seems like a pretty nice guy and you know, pretty you know, pleasant to work with.
Oh man, I don't know what it is. He's probably one of the nicest, if not the nicest guy in the world. And it's funny because you know, it's very hard not to get, you know, we work with so many guys that end up, you know, they fight each other. Like we work with a lot of guys that are going against each other on cards. It's not uncommon, but it sucks, man. Cause, you know, like when Uriah
Damian Brown and Camacho fought each other. I remember they were both using you.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, man. that was a big one. I used to train with Camacho, which is crazy. And you know what's funny? I didn't even know that they were fighting each other because I literally, like, people, they laugh. Like, I never go to the fights. I don't even look at the fight card. Like, you know, I just make sure that the numbers, that I'm just a numbers guy. But yeah, I remember we were in Manila, and Frankie was fighting Uriah, and the UFC put their rooms right next to each other. Oh man, I was working with both of them, so like, I love them both to death. Like, I mean, they're so freaking cool. But yeah, I remember walking out of one room, and the other team would be walking in, and I felt like that cheating boyfriend. Like, oh man, hey guys, like, oh yeah, I just left his room, but you know, everybody's really cool with it, you know. And you know, my point is, it's hard not to get super close to the fighters. Like, and Daniel Cormier, like, is probably the hardest. Like, you know, sometimes we're gonna have to work with people that he's fighting and stuff like that. But yeah, man, it's hard not to get personal with that guy. He's so nice.
What would you say is one of the biggest mistakes fighters make when it comes to approaching the weight cut? Just, you know, in your experience over the years.
Man, they get too involved with the actual scale. What I mean by that is, they'll do whatever it takes to make the scale go down, and it's not what I call real weight. For instance, we know, like, if you cut out carbs, your weight's going to go down. You know, water attaches to carbohydrates. 1 gram of glycogen holds 3 grams of water. So if I take out carbs, which basically your body stores as glycogen, if I take out carbohydrates, then not only is my body going to lose the carbs, but it's also going to lose the water that's attached to those carbs. Now, with that being said, that's great, but it's like, if I eat carbs again, what happens to that weight? It comes right back on. But fighters want to see that scale go down. With that being said, it's not real weight. They're just losing the water weight from the carbohydrates. Now, the thing is you're getting ready for a fight. The thing I need to do is I need to burn as much fat as possible. Well, how do I burn fat? Doing anaerobic activities, which needs glycogen, which needs those carbohydrates. So in the long run, to see that scale go down, they're biting themselves in the butt because they don't have the energy it takes to actually work those real calories off. And they do the same thing with sodium. They know if they cut sodium out that they're going to start dropping that water weight. Problem is there's a lot of hormones in our body. If we start dropping sodium, our blood pressure drops. You know, we have something called bar receptors in our heart that are really going to, you're going to get really dizzy. You're going to feel faint. You're not going to have really strong workouts. And in the end, when it does come time to cut, your body won't release that water because there's something called aldosterone that your body starts releasing. But so the thing is like looking at real numbers and understanding, like, okay, I didn't really gain a pound. Like, some people, they'll be like, dude, I gained 3 pounds because they didn't sweat that day. And when you look at numbers, 1 pound is 3,500 calories. So for you to gain 3 pounds, you'd have to eat in excess of over 10,000 calories. You know what I'm saying? So you know you didn't do that, so it's all water weight, and they need to trust those numbers. But you know, I understand it's really hard, and that's why a lot of people they call us. Like, one of our jobs is, you know, obviously to make weight, make you, rehydrate people, but it's also like it's to calm you the heck down, because you know, like, when people call us out there, they're not like, oh crap, am I going to make weight? They're not thinking about that the week of the fight. You know what I mean? They're concentrating on the fight, and we do everything else. And a lot of times we calm them down, like, hey man, look at it like this. You know, here's the numbers, and this is what's going on, and this is what's going to happen. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
You mentioned, being pulled in different directions as far as the clients you work with. You worked with Demi Lovato. I mean, that's a pretty big deal. Not everyone's going to work with, a multi-million-dollar, recording artist. What do you sort of see the future for your company? Because again, you're in demand a lot, and I know you have a team now. Is it, taking that step sort of away from fighting at this point, or what are you sort of seeing as far as what's going to happen in the future?
Man, honestly, yeah, like with LockhartAndLeith, one of the biggest things is like, we're kind of the only game in town now. Like, I don't say that to be, but like we kind of are the only game in what we're doing with the UFC. And one of our goals last year was to take over the UFC. We want as many people as we can. And the reason being is because what we do is it's a safe way of cutting weight. Anybody that that we've worked with, they'll tell you that, and that's, we don't market or anything like that. It's all by word of mouth. Fighters tell fighters, and that's where we are. But in essence, the people that we really want to help are those people that it's not the Conor McGregors. It's the people that follow Conor McGregor that can't afford us. We literally, we're coming out with a new DVD set. Like, we literally put our whole system on a DVD set, and we have like supplements and stuff like that, like real stuff that people are going to be able to take and not worry about, you popping with USADA, and, I'm not going to lie, this lady that I just got done working with, 3 months, man, she did amazing. It was awesome seeing this transition take place. And that's one of the things I love doing, seeing a fighter make weight is freaking phenomenal. It's awesome. But like seeing these life changes, that's pretty awesome too. So we have a lot of different things that we're going at. We got the celebrity, the athletes, and then obviously we're wanting to get into corporations and then the average Joe.
Excellent. I just got one more question for you here. Again, you work with Conor McGregor a lot. Your gut feeling, just as someone who's worked with him, do you think he'll come back and fight in the UFC? Because it seems right now that, maybe there's greater pastures for him, in boxing, making more money there.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would be shocked if he didn't. Conor, he's a businessman, but man, he's a fighter. Like, he loves fighting. It's in his blood. So yeah, I'd put my money on it that he'd be back. He's going to be back in the cage.
Excellent. Well, George, we're certainly looking forward to your fighters hitting the scales coming up here at UFC St. Louis. And I want to thank you so much for the time today. It was really great talking to you. I got to get you back on again because there's so much more I wanted to ask you. And we're already at 16 minutes here. Just remind people where they can get a hold of you on social media, and if you have any sponsors, supplements, whatever you got to plug, by all means, plug away. The floor is yours.
Oh man, thanks a lot. Yeah, but like I said, we just finished up a DVD set with BJJ Fanatics. They're the biggest, I think the biggest MMA DVD section in the world. So we're actually starting pre-sales and everything. If people want to, they can go to BJJ Fanatics /Lockhart. It'll take them there. They can go to LockhartAndLeith.com for the website. They can check me out. Our Instagram is LockhartAndLeith. Obviously, we have our guys, Tyler Minton. We have Ian Larios, myself, and Dan. You'll see us all on there being tagged. So, I hope people reach out to us, ask us questions on there. They can hit us via Instagram, and we'll get back to them as soon as possible, whether they're amateurs, average Joes or UFC fighters.